Hello, Lemonsters. See what we have in store for you. Store closure. That's what we got for you.
The way Christmas was last year, this really comes to no surprise. But it is a shock for the Leominster area. The SEARS is closing. And pause if you want to read any of this, because I just show enough to show what we need to. I am using a different camera. The image stabilization isn't the best, but it does a decent job. Anyway, after we read this, we start our way into the store. It's a U-shaped store, more or less, but what we're going to do is go towards the, what would be the western part of the sideways U and go up the cross section. Now over here in Land's End, it is not really affected by the going out of business outside of having to just try and get rid of the inventory. So there's no real sales there. In the regular store, now it's starting to show. Now, this store started its shutdown process on December 2nd, 2019. It is December 4th. I wanted to do this the day it started, but for the last 2 days, there was a big snowstorm and I couldn't do it. So right now we're in the very young kids and again showing the signs of disbelief on the ceilings. Empty display there. Young kids clothes, and the big thing that we're going for here is the toy department. Now I'm using a different camera than the phone because I did not want to be seen. The camera I use doesn't really look like a camera, but to play it safe and make it look like I'm using a phone, I dip it down and pretend to play with the buttons. So every time you see a quick crossfade, that's where I dip the camera down, and when I pull the camera back up, I start the this particular segment again. And we are in the toy department, which was way bigger than this not all that long ago. Probably 3 shelves wide, which for a Sears is pretty typical. So we're now going into the housewares department, and there's some baby furniture as well. Starting to get a little random, but not too much. You can see some of the fixtures that are for sale. None taken quite yet. Got baby carriage row way in the back. And more fixtures. And what's left of kitchen appliances, which this whole area was. You can see they're selling some of the open box ones, which we look at right here. This toaster oven. And not much there. So now what we're going to do is double back and go along the main route. We have now doubled back to where we started, and now we're going to take the main U-shaped part of the store, which goes through the rest of it. Here we're going to the jewelry department. You can see everything's labeled to go, 70% off. Again, there was an employee right there, so I didn't have the camera up all the way, but we were looking at the merchandise, so there was no need to edit that part out. Then we do work our way over to the shoe department while staring at some more of the jewelry. We got a better shot here without making a scene. Now we're in the men's department, and shoes is on the left. The shoes didn't really look all that different, so we didn't really look at it too much. So yeah, the displays that are up front are a little bare. And now we come to the men's department, and as you can see, it's getting pretty thin already. It's only been 2 days in operation, and usually the very short sales that they have in terms of the amount they slash off is so minute that people don't really go for anything. Across the aisle, we have the jeans. And as you can see, there's quite a few empty cubby holes and a lot of them that just have a single pair. But then there's various sizes and styles. There's still some kind of a selection. Shirts and outerwear, cargo pants, still available, still a lot. So in that respect, it's not really all that much different. The surprise is that even though it's labeled 10 to 40% off, some of the stuff is 50 already. As we head towards the end of the men's department, we are heading to what used to be the electronics department and ultimately became bedding. Kind of a Kmart theme going there, except they completely took anything away that made it look like it was an electronics department. The TVs were in the far right, music and what have not, DVDs were far left. Here's the ever-present appliances department, for which there's still quite a selection there, in some ways not so much. Exercise equipment, very slim pickings at this point, sort of taking over part of the Craftsman area. As you can see, a lot of empty floor space, a couple washers just hanging around. The Christmas tree set up, perfect timing. This store is planned to close early to mid-February, depending on how well things go. And we're heading towards the Craftsman Tools. Just random stuff on the side of the walls there. The optics department, there's an employee right there, so we just went by it. And a quick look in the employee area, the stock room, but we don't go in, and that's all you're going to get. And the Craftsman area was somewhat bare when the store was in good hands and in operation. Now it's almost empty. And by good, that's when they used to actually stock things. It would be a little better than this, probably like that wall right there. But it's emptying out. Even at a stingy 20%, things are going away and disappearing quickly. This area is almost completely emptied out. This is where you would find a lot of your auto mechanic type, style tools or type of tools, or the heavier equipment. As you can see, it's almost completely gone. And a water leak, which I assume when this place closes is going to turn into a moldy mess. That only time will tell. Got some more tools right here. I'm viewing this in a very small window, so there's a single standing or walk mower and a single riding mower. Get them in reverse. Yeah, I don't care if the speech is 100% perfect on this. I mean, it's done on the fly, no scripts. And then we got Barbecue Island. There's still quite a few of them available. Whether it's gas, the old charcoal, a lot of barbecue utensils, and then doubling back to the electronics department where they turned it into vacuums. Although in the very beginnings, this particular area right here at the back wall was a restaurant. And I've only seen an operation once when they tried to reopen it, and it didn't last very long. Since no one was here, I decided to check the restroom because the Kmart that was in Fitchburg was in really deplorable shape, You can kind of tell they gave up a little bit, but at least they're keeping it clean. I mean, nothing's really filthy, but we got a leaking sink, and I don't think the drops are showing, but of course, as soon as I pulled the camera away, it would drip again. So the bathroom was actually pretty good. At this point, we saw pretty much the store, so right now, just taking one final walk out the door, the same way that we came in initially. So the start at the front of the mall was just a setup. I'll even tell you that. This is how I determined what kind of camera to use, and just more reasons to remember, it's all over, and it's all over pretty soon. Thank you. And now back to normal audio.
As I held the door for people, it's kind of sad to see it go. 1967 Sears. Been here before the actual mall as a whole was here. Used to be this building, nothing that way. And that over there was demolished. That's the Garden of Furniture outlet. Used to be Toys R Us. And attached to it was Bradley's. That's long gone and demolished. This is also a rare moment that a chain at this mall shuts down a store here before it is the final stretch. Pretty much every store that ever closed here or went out of business, it was always the last in a series of a chain to go. Woolworths was amongst the very last. Bradley's was. Radio Shack, KB, Toys R Us, but not Sears. It's one of the, probably next to last. But there were, what, about 2,200 stores in operation when things started going really bad, and now they are at, I believe, 70. I know Kmart, 70 to 80. So I mean, this made it's in the high percentile of survival, but the very rare instance here at Searstown Mall / Mall at Whitney Field that a store that is closing is not amongst the final group. So that was the very first walkthrough, and I did not use the phone because that would have been obvious, so I used something else. So yeah, that will be it. I wanted to take a picture of the store logo and use that in a thumbnail, but they're all faded and look like crap. Anyway, Georgia551 saying, well, in a sense, hope you enjoy and have a good one.